Welcome back inside the den. Hey, crazy times in the college basketball world, especially with the Mountain West and specifically Nevada basketball. They just wrapped up their season, 26-6, an outstanding season, probably something that exceeds even expectations prior to the start of this year, right?
I mean, Nevada was expecting to go and win a Mountain West championship and get to the NCAA tournament. Now they've locked in getting to the NCAA tournament, couldn't quite win the Mountain West championship. So I think there might be a tinge of disappointment that they weren't able to cut down nets during the regular season. But now they'll get that opportunity in the postseason. They couldn't be playing any better basketball. 26-6 is a phenomenal season, especially when you put Nevada in this year's Mountain West, which is arguably the best it's ever been. So if you're a Wolfpack fan, you have to be super pleased with how the regular season went, even though you weren't able to quite win a regular season championship. And as we said, Nevada is playing, to me, the best of anybody in the Mountain West right now. 7 straight wins. That's their most victories to end the regular season since 2005-06 in the WAC. Nick Fazekas' junior year. Nevada then went on to win the WAC tournament, got a number 5 seed, unfortunately lost to Montana in the first round. So the playoffs, the postseason can be a little bit fickle, but everything is lined up right now for Nevada to have a nice deep run at the Mountain West tournament and then maybe make a run in the NCAA tournament based on how it's playing right now. So you got to be thrilled with the regular season. We'll see if Nevada can follow that up with a great postseason.
Yeah, it's coming up quickly. Thursday, there'll be an action against the winner of San Jose State and Colorado State. You know, it's a 7-10 matchup, but one would imagine, you know, if the Rams advance there, that's a pretty good quarterfinal matchup. It kind of speaks to the depth of the Mountain West this year, that the Colorado State Rams, the one-time 13th ranked team in the nation, is the 7th seed at the Mountain West tournament. But there should be really good basketball down in Vegas this week.
Yeah, it's not going to be an easy path for anyone. I think the disappointing thing for Nevada not getting that number 1 overall seed is the number 1 overall seed. I don't want to say they have a bye into the semifinals, but they play most likely Wyoming, either Wyoming or Fresno State, in that first quarterfinal. And that is a markedly not as good team as Colorado State, as New Mexico, who will likely play Boise State in the lower quarterfinal, and then the UNLV San Diego State matchup. So the number 1 seed, you earn that for a reason. You have the easiest quarterfinal matchup. I think if you're Nevada, and it looks like it's going to be Colorado State, barring a huge San Jose State matchup, upsetting the Rams, I think that's a good matchup for you. I mean, Nevada obviously took care of business at Lawler against Colorado State. The second game back in Fort Collins was the famous Jared Lucas banked in three-pointer from half court, but that was played without Keenan Blackshear as well, and Nevada led pretty handily for the majority of that game. So I think this is a favorable matchup for the Wolfpack, as long as Colorado State doesn't hit a lot of threes, and that's been their big issue. Why were they number 13th in the country in non-conference? Why did they beat Creighton and Washington and Boston College and a bunch of really good non-conference wins? It's because they were making their threes. They have an elite point guard in Isaiah Stevens. He's going to get you open shots. They're just not knocking down those shots in Mountain West play, and they enter the Mountain West tournament probably in the NCAA tournament field, but not 100% secured. So the motivation factor for Colorado State, if they do get that quarterfinal against Nevada, is going to be really, really high, because they know if they get to the semifinals of that tournament, they are 100% in the NCAA tournament. So while it is a favorable matchup for Nevada, I mean, Colorado State is more than capable of going out there and beating the Wolfpack. But that's what you're going to face. You're going to have to beat 3 really good opponents to win this year's Mountain West championship, and we'll see if Nevada's up to that task.
Yeah, it's a tough path forward. But as you said, it kind of hinges if they play Colorado State. It's not a certainty. It could very well be San Jose State. But on limiting Isaiah Stevens and that three-point attack. Now, Colorado State did surge back prior to that Jared Lucas half-court shot and kind of limited Nevada. But like you said, Keenan Blackshear was out of that game. But, we'll see. In the NFL, it's they say the old saying is it's hard to beat a team 3 times if you play a division foe in the playoffs. But I'd imagine it might apply for the Mountain West,
Yeah.
And even though it is a
I think it's a
matchup,
cliche. I mean, if you beat a team twice, you're better than that team, right?
That's fair.
So I think I'd rather be 2-0 against a team facing them a third time than 0-2. I think the thing with Colorado State is their front court play is not great. Patrick Cartier is a pretty solid post player, but against Nevada, he's been dominated twice. He's made 0 impact. If that guy's not hitting threes for you, he's not giving you a lot on the court against the Wolfpack, because Nevada can feast on him defensively. I think Colorado State has some pretty big defenders. Neat Clifford, Joel Scott. I think that helps them against a guy like Keenan Blackshear. I think they can match up in the backcourt for sure. It just comes down to where those role players step up and hit threes, and they had not done that in either of their 2 games against Nevada. So I think that's going to be the most interesting thing if this ends up being the matchup is, will Colorado State hit 8, 9 threes? Nevada's shooting the ball tremendous. They're the only team really in the Mountain West that's an above average 3-point shooting team if you look at what they've done in conference play. Boise State's about average. The other 5 teams that might be able to make a run to the NCAA tournament are all below average 3-point shooting teams, and I'm throwing UNLV in there as well. So, that's one of my big question marks once we get to the NCAA tournament. Does the Mountain West shoot it well enough to go out there and win games in the big dance? But I think that should be a big advantage for Nevada in this tournament is they are shooting the ball really well right now. They come off 5 straight games where they had hit at least 10 3-pointers, didn't quite hit that against UNLV, but still shot it at a pretty good percentage. And I think if Colorado State hits its threes, super dangerous team. It just hasn't been able to do that in conference play.
Yeah, certainly. It might apply here down in Vegas. Remains to be seen. Obviously, those games, the first round kicks off on Wednesday. So that should be interesting just to see how that goes down. I'm going to track back to what you said earlier. You're saying that Nevada is probably playing the best out of anybody in the Mountain West right now. Steve Alford kind of reflected that sentiment after the game, saying, hey, like no one in the conference is playing like us. The team that was playing like us was like UNLV, and we just beat them. He then went on to say that he congratulated Utah State, but went to say that they did not come to Lawler. Do you buy much stock into an even schedule, or do you give more credit to the Aggies in the season that they have?
I mean, you can only play the schedule the Mountain West gave you. Now, Utah State had the easiest schedule in the Mountain West. Nobody really projected them as a contender, so they didn't play all of the contenders 2 times. They didn't play against UNLV at home, and they didn't play against Nevada on the road. So if you're Nevada, you're saying, okay, well, if we played a true schedule, a true round robin, 20 games, we feel like we would have come out on top, but that wasn't the schedule. And, the matter of the fact is Nevada lost 2 home games to Boise State and New Mexico. Nevada lost on the road to a bad Wyoming team. If they don't do that, then they probably at least get a share of the Mountain West championship. Utah State didn't lose to any of the bottom 4 teams in the Mountain West like a Wyoming. Utah State lost only once at home. Now that was to Nevada. So I think if they ended up all playing 20 games against each other, I think Nevada and Boise State probably would have been tied for first place. Utah State was very, very good in close game situations, 10-1 in games decided by 4 points or fewer or overtime. That's not something that you can sustain. Usually you're about 500 in those games. And then, the softer schedule. But, Utah State went from having 0 returning points all the way to having the best record and the toughest Mountain West we've ever seen, according to everybody. So they are true champions. I don't think you can put an asterisk or anything next to it, but I do understand from Nevada's perspective that they feel like had they gotten Utah State at home, they would have given the Aggies another L, gotten a share of that Mountain West championship. It didn't end up that way, and you actually look at number 2 seeds, they have more success than number 1 seeds in the Mountain West tournament. So, I don't know if there's anything behind that, but I looked at the last, since Nevada joined the Mountain West in 2012-13, and they've made 7 of the 11 conference championship games and won 5 of them. So I think the number 2 seed, suits Nevada. There's an interesting fact. Nevada has never won a conference tournament when it didn't win the regular season in the same year, so it'll be trying to do that for the first time. I have my projected Mountain West tournament ballot bracket on our website, nevadasportsnet.com. I have Nevada getting to the championship game against San Diego State. Nevada 0-4 against San Diego State at the Mountain West tournament. So there's some history it's going to try and, turn once it gets into that Mountain West tournament. But yeah, there's no doubt Nevada's playing the best of any Mountain West team. There's no other team you can put up against the Wolfpack with current form. Now, I don't know if momentum means a ton. I did do a story a number of years ago looking if, momentum carried over to conference tournaments in the tournaments that Nevada was in, and there showed no correlation. But you'd rather be playing good than bad, right? Nevada was playing poor heading into the Mountain West tournament last year, and that showed both in the Mountain West tournament and the NCAA tournament. It's playing great. It's best basketball under Steve Alford by far heading into this year's postseason. So there's got to be high hopes. But, maybe you get shot down by Colorado State because they hit all those threes we were talking about, and then things, start to change with the momentum or the confidence. But, yeah, the Wolfpack's in fine form right now.
So what is it with the Mountain West tournament? Do you think it's kind of like the MLB playoffs where it's just just kind of random, or can you kind of explain the struggles that Nevada's had at the tournament, like down in Vegas?
I mean, not been great of late, right? Steve
Yeah.
Alford 2-4 in the Mountain West tournament. The 2 years before that, Nevada went 1-1, so I guess 4-6. When you look at Nevada's last 6 Mountain West tournaments, I think there's a lot more, quality moves on in basketball than in baseball. Baseball is a little bit more fluky, even if you're playing 7-game series. This is a 1-game sample size though,
Mm.
and it just comes down to, are you playing good basketball at the end of the season? You look at some of Nevada's more recent teams. Last year, they were not playing good at the end of the season. Eric Musselman's last year at Nevada, they were not playing well at the end of the season, and that was reflected. And they weren't healthy, under Muss's last year. That was not a healthy team. This appears to be a pretty healthy team outside of Keenan Blackshear. So Steve Alford had a ton of success in the Mountain West tournament at New Mexico. I don't think tournament settings are something, that he doesn't thrive in. It just seems like, you look at, what he's been able to do at Nevada in the Mountain West tournament, 2-4. Keenan Blackshear missed an open 3 to potentially take down, number 1 seeded Boise State, a couple of years ago. If that one goes down, maybe the narrative changes. Nevada, pushed San Diego State, which was heavily favored one year in a semifinal, all the way to the brink. If that one, a little bit different at the end, Nevada gets to a Mountain West championship game. But I do think that's something the Wolfpack has to prove. They obviously proved a lot during the regular season. Now it has to prove once you get to the postseason, you can go out there and, win some games, because Nevada is 2-5 in the postseason under Steve Alford. This is the best team he's had here in year 5. I think if you told people when Steve Alford signed a 10-year, almost $13 million contract 5 years ago, in year 5, would you have any Mountain West titles under Steve Alford? I think everyone would have said, well, that's the expectation when you give out that contract. You're going to have 3-4 Mountain West titles. At this point, still 0. So I think being able to get a championship in that first half of that decade-long contract, I think would go a long way. Obviously, this program's on a good trajectory right now. It's on a good track, but you are losing a lot of quality players after this year. This is the year to cash it in. So far, they have been cashing it in. Just a crazy season. They go 15-1, then they go 1-4, and since then 10-1. You take out that 2.5, 3-week period in the middle, this team's been almost unbeatable, and we'll see if they show that form again in the postseason.
Yeah, we talk about that maturation, and that's a word that that comes up a lot in post game press conferences, especially with the players. But look at the 2-year sample size, right? Last season in an MTE out in the the Cayman Islands or
Last year when they played
last year
Kansas
at the
State.
lose there. A year later, they go to an MTE in Hawaii, Diamond Head Classic, and they win there. Most Mountain West regular season play, they play UNLV twice, lose twice. Play UNLV twice this year, and they win twice. So it seems like they're correcting some of the struggles that they had in recent seasons during this season. Now the expectation will be, can they do that down in Vegas and cut down some nets, like they said earlier this week after the win against UNLV, that they're hungry to cut down some nets. But it kind of all starts on Thursday. But they definitely have the team to do it. They're playing well at the right time, hitting shots from deep. The Mountain West's best 3-point shooting output, I think they're around 36% as a team on the year. So they're evolving as an offense, and I kind of see where they can have success, because Blackshear kind of came back in, struggled his first game, which is to be expected. But this past game, he kind of got back to who he was, the guy who facilitates the offense and can drive. But integrating some of that 3-point success that they really found without him into that offense kind of leads to like a potential team that can make a huge run down there.
Well, I mean, a big thing when you get to a tournament setting like the Mountain West tournament is you're going to be playing 3 games in 3 days if you get to the championship game. And I think the deeper teams, that benefits. You look at the Mountain West, a lot of these teams go maybe 6, 7 guys deep, like with really quality players. Some of them don't even necessarily have 5 really quality players. I would say the 2 deepest teams in the Mountain West, for me, would be New Mexico, which has put itself in a position where it has to play in the first round. So they got to win 4 games in 4 days. That could be a potential semifinal matchup with Nevada, and the Lobos swept the Wolfpack. That'd be a really fun game. But also Nevada. I think Nevada's really deep when you look at what Hunter McIntosh has been able to do the last couple of weeks. I think Tyler Rollison has been fantastic as a freshman point guard. I think you don't drop off a lot when you put him in. That guy's fearless. He'll take big shots, and he's been able to make a lot of them. You look at how Daniel Foster has played this season as a 4th-year senior who, didn't give a ton of production the first 3 years, but this year, in addition to that defense he did show early in his Wolfpack career, he's doing more offensively. He's hitting threes. He's getting a lot of offensive rebounds. You've got Tylen Pope off the bench, so he's a potential ninth man. So this is at least an 8 deep team, maybe 9, and I think that is very unusual when you look in the Mountain West. A lot of these teams, when they go to their bench, there's a noticeable drop off in their overall level of play. Obviously, when Nevada goes to its bench and Jared Lucas and Keenan Blackshear aren't out there, they're not as talented, but you haven't seen a huge drop off in play. They don't allow a lot of runs when they go to their reserves, and I think that's one of the biggest benefits to Nevada in this week's setting of having to play, game after game after game, especially potentially for that championship game, because you look at that second semifinal, they'd be playing at 9 p.m., and if they win that game, they'd be playing at 3 p.m. the next day. That is a quick turnaround on the body, and having a deeper team would be very, beneficial in trying to pull that off. So in addition to the shooting, the current form, the momentum, the confidence, I think the depth is probably the Wolfpack's biggest plus.
So you just mentioned all reasons. Say, in a hypothetical, we're 3 weeks down, and we look back and we say, hey, Nevada had success at the Mountain West tournament and the NCAA tournament as reasons, for positive. Now give us, reasons why, if we're sitting there in 3 weeks and say, Nevada didn't have success at the Mountain West tournament or the NCAA tournament.
I mean, I still think the kryptonite is kind of like these big athletic teams. I think if you can defend Nevada without fouling, stay down on the head fakes that Jared Lucas puts up there. Keenan Blackshear's not getting to the free throw line anymore, and it's probably because he doesn't have quite the first step because he's playing a little bit banged up. I think that's been the formula, and then you go and beat them on the backboards, which is very doable. For that stretch where they were really struggling, it was because of the rebounding to a large degree, the offensive rebounding they were allowing. Now, I think now that they're making more threes, the offense is much more diversified, so they don't live and die with the free throw line as much, so they've become a better offensive team. I think you look at that starting lineup, there are 4 guys there who can give you 15 points, which, again, is pretty unusual in the Mountain West. Obviously, Jared Lucas and Keenan Blackshear can do that. Nick Davidson, after that 1-4 stretch, has become a much bigger piece of the offense, and he's been much more productive. And then Trey Coleman is shooting the three-pointer way better. So you got 4 guys who can score, and then when you throw in a Hunter McIntosh or a Daniel Foster, you got a little bit more scoring than necessarily when you have KJ Himes out there. So I would say if there's a lack of success in the postseason, it's probably because Nevada ran into these bigger athletic teams that can create some turnovers, they can stay on the ground and make them shoot over the top of them, and then who can kind of pound them inside and have success on the backboard. I mean, that's what New Mexico is able to do. That's what San Diego State's able to do, and San Diego State almost swept the Wolfpack. Obviously, Nevada fought back and won that one in overtime at Lawler. That was a great game. So many great games this season. I think Nevada has improved against those kinds of teams. Beating TCU, which is kind of a grindy, physical, athletic team, that shows proof of evolution as well. But I would say that would probably be the thing I'd be most concerned about when you're looking at matchups. And obviously, New Mexico poses that in a potential semifinal. San Diego State poses that in a potential final. And then once you get to the NCAA tournament, it's just a roll of the dice on what caliber and kind of team you're going to get. They're all good teams, but they're all built a little bit differently. Yeah. And I think Nevada against more finesse teams like your Colorado States, like even to your Utah States to a degree, I think that's a much more advantageous matchup.
Yeah. We'll see on Selection Sunday if they pull one of these, big SEC teams or, any Big 12 teams. That's tough. That's a tough matchup, but again, we'll have to wait and see. You never know. That's why you have the Selection Sunday. Chris, let's kind of just power through this. You're gonna have more predictions as the time comes through, but I'll go game by game.
Yeah, we could do the whole bracket. Yeah, let's do the whole bracket.
All right, so let's start Wyoming versus Fresno State. 2 teams that have kind of trended in the opposite direction after some successful years under their coaches. Just give me a winner there.
I'll give you Wyoming on that one. I think their guard play is better. Fresno State is getting a little bit healthier. They did get their starting center back for their last game. Wyoming's got some decent bigs. I think that one comes down to who shoots the three-pointer better. Both these teams like to shoot the three-pointer. But Wyoming with Sam Griffith, I think a little bit stronger in the backcourt, so I'm going to say that. This is probably Justin Hudson's last year with Fresno State. This is the last year of his contract. Things haven't gone great this year because of a lot of those injuries. So I think Wyoming wins it, and that's probably Coach Hudson's last game with the Bulldogs.
Yeah, some memorable matchups with Hudson and Nevada over the years, so it'll be interesting. A thing to note in the offseason who they replace him with. Let's go down to, and we kind of answered this with our potential preview, but Colorado State, San Jose State.
Yeah, I'll go Colorado State on that one. San Jose State's defense is very, very poor. The worst in the Mountain West. It seems like everybody hits like 10 to 15 threes against them. That might be a concern if you're Nevada. So if Colorado State goes and hits a bunch of threes against San Jose State the day before, they're feeling good about their shot, and then they step into a game against you. That's a big concern for these teams that are in the quarterfinals. Is the team that they're playing had just played a game and has that momentum, feeling good about themselves. I think Colorado State wins that one by double figures, and the only way I think San Jose State wins is if it hits 12, 13, 14 threes. They take a lot of threes, but not the most accurate deep shooting team.
Okay, and the next game we have New Mexico and Air Force.
Yeah, New Mexico. I mean, Air Force won at the Pit. That's the biggest dent on any NCAA tournament resume of all of these teams in the Mountain West. So Air Force showed it was capable, and I'm still not sold on New Mexico's defense. I love their offense. I love their depth. I love their post players. Jalen House is really fun to watch. It just seems like everything doesn't click together with that team, but I think it clicks together, and they win that one.
Yeah, it's Lunardi had a recent, his projections out earlier for Selection Sunday, and he was the first team of the first 4 out was New Mexico.
Yeah.
So we made a six bid Mountain West video, and it may fall short, but who knows? New Mexico might go on a run. They have the talent too.
That's before the bid stealers too. So I mean, there's probably going to be maybe 2 or 3 bid stealers. So I think New Mexico has to get to the semifinal at least, and maybe the title game to get into the NCAA tournament.
Yeah. All right, so we move back up to the top of the bracket. We have Utah State and Wyoming.
I'm going to go Utah State on that one. Darius Brown is a phenomenal point guard. Great Osabor is a phenomenal post player. They've got some pretty good role players. Ian Martinez from Maryland has been really good. Mason Falsev is a freshman, but he's a very old freshman, went on a mission and then redshirted a year. So, they've got some other good pieces. Josh Uche is the co-sixth man of the year, according to the media. So I don't have Utah State winning the whole thing, but I do think they'll get by Wyoming.
Yeah, certainly. Next, we have UNLV and San Diego State.
I'm going San Diego State on this one. I know people are jumping off the bandwagon. They lost their last 2 games of the regular season, one in that very building at UNLV, so they're going to be a rematch of that. They lost that one by 4, and then they lost at home in overtime to Boise State by a couple of points in a game they probably should have won. I still think San Diego State's very good. Now, they have some issues scoring. If Jaden Ledee's not getting it going and teams are double-teaming him, he's not the greatest passer. You can slow them down offensively, but this team has the pedigree. If they get just a little bit of shooting, they're really difficult to beat. So I think San Diego State's going to move forward. That's our first seeded upset, San Diego State being the 5 seed to UNLV's 4.
What is interesting about San Diego State is, despite the drop-off, bracketologists are still quite high on them, listing them as a potential 5 seed in the tournament. Obviously, we don't know. That doesn't equate to exactly what the committee's going to think. But I think their resume is still quite strong, despite some recent drop-off. Now we go down to Nevada and Colorado State.
I'm going Nevada on that one. As we mentioned, the Wolfpack 2-0 against the Rams. Did that without Keenan Blackchair for one of the games. Again, I think that one really comes down to 3-point shooting. Isaiah Stevens is going to go get his. If the role players step up, if Nick Clifford, Joel Scott, Patrick Cartier, if all of them are chipping in double figures, then you're in trouble. They just have not shot the ball well enough in Mountain West play for me to truly believe that they're going to be able to do it in the tournament. They've not played great basketball once conference play began, so I'm going to go Nevada.
All right, and now we go down to Boise State, and you had New Mexico advancing.
I did. I'm going to have New Mexico advancing on this one. I know Boise State swept the Lobos, won at the Pit. That kind of started New Mexico unraveling 4-6 in their last 10 games after beating Nevada by 34 points at the Pit. I just think New Mexico needs this game so much more. They've got 2, like I said, great post players. They're not always on the court at the same time. I think Jalen House is kind of built for these moments. Leon Rice, a lot more success in the conference tournament than he had really, in the previous 6 or 7 or I guess 10 years in the conference, the last couple years. He's gotten a little bit further along, and I really do like Boise State and how they play. They're just not quite as deep. So I'm going to pick New Mexico in another upset.
All right. Utah State, San Diego State, you kind of answered. who do you think is going to make it to the finals?
Yeah, I'll go San Diego State on
yeah.
that one. I
Okay.
think this is still a very, very good team. It's very good defensively. When Lamont Butler's on the court, I think it runs really smoothly. I think if he gets into foul trouble, things start to break down because he gets them good shots, and he's a great perimeter defender. So I do think, they split that one, both won on their home courts. I do really, you got to give a ton of credit to Utah State for what they were able to accomplish, but I still think that Utah State's not quite, and this is kind of mean to say, but I just don't feel like they're quite as good as the best teams in the Mountain West. Now, if they went out and won a Mountain West championship, they hit some hugely clutch shots late in games against Fresno State, against UNLV, against New Mexico. I just feel like it's a little bit fluky that they've been so good in close games. So I'm going to say that UNLV or San Diego State in this one moves on.
I'll give you an NFL equivalent of Utah State. It's the 2023 or 22-23 Minnesota Vikings that had like the plus minus differential, the least of a 13-win team in like NFL history.
I mean, it's
So,
still
like,
very good. Like Utah
it's
State,
still a very good team, but like
they're going
it's
to be
not
like a
quite-
7 seed in the NCAA tournament,
Yeah.
maybe a 6 seed. If they
Yeah.
win this, maybe a 5 seed. Like they've earned all of the accolades they've gotten. I just feel like when push comes to shove, I would not say they probably wouldn't be in my top 4 of my Mountain West rankings. If I had to bet my life on a game, I probably wouldn't bet it on them. But I would have died by now because they've won all of these games.
Absolutely, they find a way.
Yeah.
They really do. They're always in these close games, and they make clutch shot after clutch shot. So there's credit there.
Oh, for sure.
But you have San Diego State advancing to the finals, and we'll go to the next semifinal game. We have Nevada and New Mexico. Now this will be the third game we mentioned. That on the other end with Nevada and Colorado State, but Nevada is 0-2 against the Lobos. So
First one was not close, 34-point loss. Second one was very close. Actually, New Mexico led that game by a good margin, like 8-10 for the majority of it. Nevada went on a late run to peek its head in front, and then Jalen Mashburn Jr. hit back-to-back threes on New Mexico's last 2 possessions. Keenan Blackshear missed a jumper to potentially win the game, so New Mexico won that one by 1. I'm taking Nevada in this one. I think the Wolfpack, what it's shown more than anything from February on is it can win away from home. A lot of these teams, they're great at home, but when they go on the road, I mean, this is obviously neutral, not quite as good of a team. So I'm going to put some credence in Nevada getting this one. I think it plays really well away from Lawler Event Center. And while it is a difficult matchup, I do think Nevada has the pieces to beat New Mexico.
they do travel. I mean, to get a win. I mean, I think it was the lone Mountain West win in Logan when they beat Utah State there, and then to win in Colorado State as well. So yeah, Nevada has traveled outside of that New Mexico game at the Pit, but it's probably more of like them not playing well at the right time. But they're playing
if
better.
that game does happen, New Mexico will have a home court advantage. New Mexico's fans are the best in the Mountain West. They do travel the best to this tournament. So if Nevada gets to that game, they'll certainly have a lot of fans there. But the Lobos will have the majority of the fans for that game.
Well, it'll be quite the atmosphere. That'll be a 9 p.m. tip-off, like we said earlier. Really late, so you drink some energy drinks and prepare to be up till 11:30 or midnight that night. So now, final. We got San Diego State and Nevada on Saturday.
I wanted to pick San Diego State, but I'm going to go Nevada. I mean,
roll
people
with
say that's a homer pick. I don't usually, honestly, pick Nevada, but I just feel like Nevada's playing the best basketball. And the combination of the depth, the three-point shooting, the success away from home, the fact they're peaking at the right time, they've got really good balance. It's not always on Keenan Blackshear or Jared Lucas's shoulders anymore to win games. Nick Davidson can go out and you win a game. Trey Coleman can go out and win you a game. Hunter McIntosh obviously won Nevada the Boise State game. I just think the Wolfpack is playing great basketball right now. So I'm going to go with Nevada in a very close one against San Diego State. Let's even say an overtime game. Nevada beats San Diego State in overtime to win the Mountain West Tournament Championship. Moves to 1-4 against the Aztecs all time in this conference tournament.
That'd be amazing. But with those wins, real quick before we leave, give me the seeding at the NCAA tournament if they pull all this off and cut down nets.
So right now they're
Vegas.
projected as a 6-7. I think if Nevada wins the Mountain West tournament, it gets up to a 5 seed. If it wins it in dominant fashion, maybe a 4 seed. I think 5 seed is doable for this team that wins the Mountain West tournament.
Great. That'd be a good positioning for them in the NCAA tournament around the 5 seed. Again, you wouldn't have to play the 1 or 2 seed until that round of 16, the Sweet 16. So, this hypothetical looks pretty good for Nevada. We'll see how it plays out. Again, action down in Vegas starts on Wednesday. We'll have coverage throughout the rest of the week. Any final thought, Chris?
I'm just going to enjoy it. Yeah, you
All
can
right.
watch the first round games on NSN. Beyond that, CBS Sports Network. But it should be an awesome tournament. There's 7 teams that could legitimately win this thing, and you could rarely say that in the past history of this tournament.